Boys, welcome back to the Lonely Road. This week's been absolutely insane. We've swapped around when we were recording this like two or three times. There's been massive things going on, so it's been a little bit of fun. So we're recording this on Tuesday like we normally do, even though it's changed three times already this week. But we're here to help you guys on your journey to be a better human, and many of you guys know I struggle with being a better human, I guess, some days. Use code RMDS to check out for G Fuel. Get 20% off. Show them we're loved by them and all that stuff. KJ, how have you been?
I have been. I have been better. I have been better. Yep.
I
It's
feel
been
that.
it's been a it was an okay week. But it frustrating to some levels, but nothing, and I was actually celebrating some successes in not being baited into certain situations and shutting up and being quiet when I needed to be quiet, things like that. Not letting my anxiety rule me or
Yeah.
my fear get the best of me in situations. And then it just kind of backfired on me.
There are
So there's
sometimes where it's like when you're growing and stuff and you're trying to actively change things about you. Some days your life will just be like, no, fuck you. You changed too much. Go back a little bit.
it was like 10
Reassess what
steps
you're doing.
forward, 7.5 steps back. It felt like. I'm sure it's not that bad. I mean, it is that bad. It absolutely is. But it just feels like I've taken so many steps back from the growth and the steps forward that I was making. But that doesn't negate the steps that I have already made and the things that I've already done. So I can't do that to myself either.
Yeah, exactly. And when you do make such a drastic change or you have something happen, it's really kind of hard to just jump and be like, "Oh fuck, nope, now I got to restart everything." It's like, no, you've already laid out the instructions on how to do this for yourself. Breathe for 5 seconds, give yourself kind of the grace that you deserve, and realize that it's okay to keep going. You didn't fuck everything up. You fucked up one day.
Yeah.
And I was just having that same exact conversation with my mom. I was like, even if you have a bad day, you have a bad choice, you have a bad decision, whatever the fuck it is, you don't need to throw away the year worth of success. You don't have to throw away the day full of success, even if you
No,
fuck up once.
no, it's true. But when things happen and there's a level of trauma there, it kind of has a ripple effect to those around you, and to
Yeah.
those affected, it's horrible. It's just not something that they signed up for.
Well, that's a hard thing to say, in all honesty, because you could say it both ways. You could say once they get to know you and they're in your house and they're fully connected to you, they know you. They're signing up for exactly what you are. They're like, the piece of that crazy pie that's over there is my piece of crazy pie.
Yeah,
There's part of them that
yeah,
is so directly connected to you that even if you're fucking insane, they still fucking love you. There's people that loved fucking people like Manson and everything else that just are absolutely infatuated by them. So like you can't really say, "Oh, well, it's not what they wanted." No, they bought into this at some point.
yeah.
It's not like you changed so drastically in your life that, you're a completely different psychological outcome than what you were 10 years ago. Are you going to be slightly different? Yeah, but you're not going to be a completely different person. They bought in way before you even really kind of count them as buying in.
True, true.
It's just it's such a weird thing to look at in that way because it's like everybody wants to give the people around them grace instead of understanding that they can give themselves grace too. That it's hard to look at.
Yeah, that's the hardest part for me is realizing that I've been a person that I didn't like when it was done to me,
Yeah.
you know, and that makes me feel horrible. So, um, I there was a huge event that happened. Well, a huge to me event that happened in my life over the weekend, and I did a pretty drastic measure for a smaller argument. And I think that I think that it stopped me dead in my tracks. Remember how I was kind of hitting the brakes on getting counseling
Yeah,
because I didn't trust them and I had plenty of circumstances lined up not
absolutely.
to trust. Um, I have an appointment. I have an appointment on Friday um, because who knew that my anger issues could seriously harm me, possibly kill me or someone around me.
Yeah.
Um, and well, I mean, I didn't realize it was that bad. And I don't know if anybody else in my life realized it was that bad and didn't tell me. But this was one of the worst. I have to say one of the worst. Um, if not the absolute worst. I don't think I've done anything. Um, maybe when I was younger, but anything else really pales in comparison. But I am not happy with the way I have acted as a result of my own pain, fear, and anxiety. So I've made a commitment to not only continue my self journey, but also have a guided tour of
Yeah.
some ways that I need to might be medication again. It might be, I don't know what's wrong with me. But I decided in the middle of an argument that it was a good idea. We were approaching an intersection, so the car was slowing down, but I thought it was a good idea to, uh, without thinking, no thoughts, no consequences went through my mind, to just exit the vehicle. I ended up on the ground with my foot underneath my car. I wasn't driving, uh, but the person that was pretty traumatized by it, I'm sure. Um, but I got out, and nothing else was hurt. But I very well could have been uh, taken out of the car, or
Mhm.
hit by a car behind me, or somebody pulling out, or something else. It was relatively low speed, but we weren't stopped. It was pretty scary all the way around.
Yeah.
But who knew that I didn't know that I would do something like that. I would have never thought that if I would have watched somebody else do that, I would have called them nuts. Well, it's pretty nuts.
In a lot of circumstances, it is, and it's so hard to like look at yourself and be like, okay, why did I do this? But
Yeah.
I think that's the most important question for yourself. Whether you want to answer that here, you want to answer that to the people around you, or even in therapy, maybe that's the first step.
Yeah.
Is look at it and be like, okay, why did that argument, why did that thing, why did that conversation, why did that problem cause me to feel so invalidated in life that it no longer matters?
I I don't think I've ever been suicidal. I wouldn't have called myself suicidal because I don't have the will to do anything to harm myself. Um, However, when I get past the point of angry, no, it's just not an angry. I get explosive.
Mhm.
There's a certain level past a certain line I cross. I don't have to tell you, but there's a certain line I
Yeah.
cross that if I allow myself to go past that trigger, if I allow my mouth to open or if I allow myself to go past that trigger, I black out.
Mhm.
And
Does it feel like everything gets like sort of hazy? Like you only have the thoughts that are in your head and
yeah,
that is it. And like everything that right there, that exact explanation of like everything kind of just being a haze and the only answer that you have is not giving a fuck whether or not you die right now. That right there, that feeling is exactly what diagnosed me with suicidal ideation. That's why in our text, that's exactly what I said was like suicidal ideation might be the 70% of the problem is it's that non-willing, that non-caring level for yourself where you're like, I don't know who I am or what I am anymore. I don't know exactly what it is. And that's the hardest thing is like, okay, so do I just give myself the grace of like I haven't acted upon something? Is that is that what not being suicidal is? Or is it having those thoughts of like not giving a fuck if something happens right now?
Yeah, for me, it was more of a I don't give a fuck. I need to get away. Like
Mhm.
it was just a blister or a festering, pimple, and it was explode time. And I felt it was just like a boxed in feeling, a misunderstood, very misunderstood feeling. Um, and it was I don't know. It's something that I need to get under control. But looking back, um, it wasn't a I want I want to die feeling. It wasn't that at all. In the moment, it was I need to get out of the car, and it's almost stopped, so I can do this. It's okay. And it
Mhm.
didn't work out that way. And the results of my actions were me being pinned underneath the car, underneath the wheel, rather. My foot, and losing the trust of a person that I love. It's difficult to come to the realization that you got to a point where you didn't care what happened to you.
Yeah.
You know, hold on one second. Sorry.
No, you're good. We'll start going at 20. I got the timestamps. Don't stress. You're muted. You're muted.
It was more of a boxed in feeling for me. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and then everything went hazy. It didn't go completely black, maybe for a few seconds, but not. I've had situations where I've gone black for a minute, minute and a half, um, and it's been bad. It hasn't been good, and mostly it's hurting myself. I got into 2 fights in high school. Um, besides that, I violence hasn't really been it. There's been a couple times where I've lost my temper, um, you know, going forward, and there's a couple circumstances that, notable circumstances that absolutely happened. Um, but I didn't realize that, um, as a whole, uh, my actions were so explosive that I'm a pretty difficult person to talk to from, and it's hard to come to those realizations about yourself, realizing that, because I am a rational person and rational people, I heard something today that resonated with me. Rational people who know better behave poorly and do terrible things because of their own fear and weakness.
Yeah.
And you can always make
That was
that
going to be my
weakness
question.
better. Yeah. You can
My
always make
question
that.
was do you fear yourself or fear your thought process when you're starting to get like that? Were you trying to nope out of the car because you don't know what's going to happen next?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, the fear, um, has a lot to do with losing something because of a misunderstanding. And a lot of times when I'm in high anxiety, um, I I don't explain myself well because I'm in the high anxiety and I don't have it's like it's a tunnel brain and I can't
Yep.
reach outside there for the vocabulary words to explain myself.
Yep.
So it led me to a point of uh, feeling like feeling like just I needed to go. I needed to get away. I just needed to get away, and that's all I knew. I didn't think of the consequences. It didn't run through my brain the way it should have run through my brain. Like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Like, you need to just calm down and take a breath. But in
Mhm.
that very second, I couldn't. And I didn't realize I've been working on the trigger, and I didn't realize that I had gotten to the trigger so quickly because I wasn't to there, but I did. I was. Um, I was, and I could, looking back, I can pinpoint when, and I just needed to not have the conversation the way I was having the conversation, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard to have those conversations, whether you're struggling, whether you're feeling whatever that is. It is hard to kind of put the pieces and points together where you're like, okay, well, this is fine. No, it's not fine. Oh no, this is fine. It's no longer fine. I still feel like shit. It's it's hard. It's hard to be able to say, okay, I'm not okay to talk right now, but I need to get my thoughts out, and I need you to either accept what the fuck I'm going to say, or I need you to get the fuck out of the way so that way I can zone into something.
Or be able to be calm enough to articulate myself correctly. Because if I would have articulated myself correctly, that whole situation would not have happened. That's just the bottom line from the beginning of the situation.
Absolutely.
From the
Yeah,
very, very beginning of the situation, if I would have articulated myself correctly, even in my fear, because that's what started everything at the very beginning was fear. So even in my fear, if I would have articulated myself correctly, if I would have been able to say what I needed to say in a decent tone of voice, it wouldn't have been triggering.
absolutely. It almost seems like to me, and I go through that too, because you guys, you, my mom, and Brenda deal with me in that state so often because I give you guys my raw like output of what the fuck's going on in my head so often with everything that's going on, and right now it's fucking hell. But it's like you guys are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because like not only do I feel like you guys know so much about what's going on that you guys should just pick up from step one to where I'm at, but
Yeah.
it's so hard to figure out exactly how to express exactly what I'm thinking without pre-thinking everything out that I want to say, that it is really hard for me to even get out everything that I want to say. So then you fall into that loop of like, I can't really even get the words out because I feel like I have to jade them in some way. Like, and it caused me to have a very, very hard conversation with Bree. Even it's like, I need you to understand that when we have a conversation where we're dealing with something or we're going through something, I need you to hear what the fuck I'm saying. And if you don't understand it, ask. Like, if something comes across wrong, don't just get in your feelings. Like, if you know I'm never the person to be angry, you know I'm never the person to be hateful or aggressive, then if something comes off aggressive, fucking ask me what the fuck I mean, because at some point, like, you understand that's not me. You
Right.
understand this isn't what you're used to. So if it's not what you're used to, let's come to an understanding of, hey, you need to ask the question even if it's fucking hard.
Yeah. um, it's I don't know. There's a lot. It's a lot. It's just a lot. In the last day or two, I have just been analyzing the whole situation now that I'm able to step back and think, and take a breath and
Mhm.
realize where things went wrong at A, where things went wrong at B, and what I could have done different at C, at jump, if you will. It's it, 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 it it's interesting when you look back at situations and you reflect and you see how well you could have done in the situation
Mhm.
had the emotion not taken your voice to another level. Because I spoke out of fear when I spoke, and it sounded yelling, it sounded deep, it sounded, because that's how I was spoken to, or so it doesn't matter what happened at the beginning. I When it comes in my brain, I need to not just say something right away.
And I think a lot of us, whether it's you, whether it's people I've dealt with, whether even if it's myself, it's Bree, whatever, it is really, really quick to, even in a problem, it is easy for me to jump and defend myself and protect myself first. Because that's what you learn so often. Oh, be defensive, be
Yeah,
protective,
yeah,
like
but
insulate you. And it's like, okay, we need to stop. Everybody needs to stop this. If I love you, whether it's you, whether it's Bree, whether it's my mom, we need to understand that we don't fucking fight against each other. We fight the fucking problem. We fight with each other. Bull strong in group. We need to be bull, not fucking be ugh. Ugh gets
yeah,
stepped on and gets run over by a car, and you look like a dipshit. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you take it on the chin, you eat it, but at the same time, it's like, no, we need to start looking at things differently. We have to look at, like, you today. You're like, hey, I need to tell you this before we start, but I want to change whatever we were planning on doing. It's this now. I'm like, yes, because we're strong together. We fight through this together. Your first instinct was to ask me for help instead of like, hey, it's okay. That was my first answer. Hey, you okay?
yeah.
Why? Why are you
No,
feeling this way?
I'm not.
No.
I'm not okay. And that's all right as long as I do
Mhm.
something about it to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter what that answer is, honestly. And that's what to me made me struggle a lot when I was a teenager and stuff, was so many people would enclose on the things that I could like act out or say or do in order to feel okay, whether I was struggling or mentally or physically or whatever. That was okay. Why are you locking yourself in your room and playing video games? Why are you shutting down? Why are you blaring music? Why are you hitting things? And it's like, don't fucking box me into where I can only react in one way, because once you make it so I react in one way because you can accept it right that way, at the end, that doesn't fucking fix the problem. You're
Yeah.
just kind of controlling how I'm reacting, and that's not going to fucking help. At some point, I'm going to blow up.
Yeah, it's not gonna
Everybody
help
does.
anybody to try to control any part of a conversation that includes being defensive about it. Like, if you can take in, and I think that that is my problem because when I asked for criticism, I asked for the criticism.
Mhm.
And when I got the criticism, I got defensive about the criticism. Instead of taking it in, considering it,
Mhm.
and then moving forward with the information. You know, I automatically got defensive. And it was because I didn't, I didn't want somebody to be upset with me because I thought I had done a better job than I had. You know,
And
and
and even if it's something like work, even if it's something like, "Oh, I made this thing. Can you give me your opinion on it?" It's weird. It's really weird because I used to look for everybody's approval in that same way. Like, "Oh, how am I doing? What am I doing better? Am I good now? Am I the good boy everybody strives to be?" And it's just like some days you're like, "I can't hear the negative, but I need to ask for it because I want the positive affirmation." It's like, okay, I have to box myself in for looking for compliments from people. And it's a weird thing that I had to do. And it started about 6 years ago. Like, I stopped looking for validation through comments or numbers or what people thought or felt. At some point I was like, okay, I'm going to put me out into the world, and whatever comes back comes back, but I'd rather it be raw and real than me having to like circumvent some kind of myself to make you feel better, because that's never going to be a way that I actually succeed.
yeah, yeah,
And that's why I think that it's really hard to be like, okay, am I doing better in this? If the person doesn't understand exactly what you're asking, and it's not like, if it's something that's hurt you or you feel uncomfortable with or whatever, if it's not 75% positive, if it's not 50% positive, and they're like comparing and contrasting where you're doing better, then you will always fail in that situation, because you're like, the person that I love is hurting me. The person that I love is kicking the growth that I've done, whether they see it or not. You
yeah.
could be
No,
making changes that are mental, that
yeah,
you're just not reacting, or that you're not, oh, picking up your phone and texting every time you have a conversation. Those little things that you are thinking so in-depthly about, that you're like, I need to change this. That might not matter or be seen to them at all because it's not what they're saying the problem is.
Right. But it is something that needs to be changed for the problem to be changed.
Exactly.
Or, it's another portion of something that, yeah, no, I get it. And at the end of the day, when it all boils down, that outside validation is not something that I should be looking for. I should be able to manage that emotion, even the fear, even if it's
And
related to PTSD, even if it's trauma that I haven't gapped up, that's not anybody else's problem but my own.
I think the biggest thing to learn in that is that people that love you will love you regardless of if you're struggling today or you feel like you're the president of the United States today. It doesn't matter. They should love you and respect you in the same exact way, if not better on your bad days than your good days. It shouldn't matter if you're doing better in this way or that way, or if they feel you're doing better this way or that way. It's the fact they love you.
You feel so unworthy when
Mhm.
you fuck up, you know?
Yeah.
You feel so unlovable um, when you're not doing well in one way or another. And that's hard to get past.
And being the person that was like my ex-wife's everything, she relied on me for every mental health thing ever. If it was negative, I had to make sure that she was okay. If she was manic and super positive, I had to like compress her a little bit so that way she was semi okay. So that way when she did crash, she didn't fall off the face of the earth because that's what was coming next. It's hard. It is so hard to be that other person because you don't really know that other part unless you actually are the other part too. If you don't play both sides, it is absolutely impossible to see, okay, well, me crashing this way, me jumping this way, me feeling this way causes that person to do that. And if they do that, then I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this and I crash. And it's like, it is really hard to hold yourself accountable every single day, all day.
Yeah, yeah, but it's it's got to happen. It's got to happen for me, you know. And it's hard, and sometimes people falter. I'm human. Human.
That's my point is like perfectionism, although might be idealistic, is not possible in 90% of cases. You might play a perfect game of Call of Duty, but I promise you the game after is not going to be a perfect game of Call of Duty. You're going to fail. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You're not perfect anymore.
Life isn't a Nintendo game, so it's hard to get the extra life, and there's some situations that may happen where you don't, and to think that I didn't deserve to continue to move forward in life, or that my family didn't deserve to continue to have me to move forward with, and not feeling worthy of that. I got to figure it out, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I have to get a hold of my emotions, and as against being on any kind of medication because of what it did to me last time, it doesn't need to be the same thing moving forward. Just like the old counselor doesn't need to be the same
Exactly.
thing moving forward. Of course, I'm not going to allow myself to be over medicated. And if it's something I can do without medication, I'm absolutely going to do that. But if I need it to prevent myself from harming myself or anybody around me, then that's what's got to be done, right?
Yeah. I think I would question you on one thing, and it might change the way you entirely look at your entire life. And I had this exact same fucking feeling right before my neck surgery. Is you were given another life. You were given another answer because guess what? It didn't fucking go the worst possible way. Even if everything from this second forward goes wrong, your heart, your last one up mushroom wasn't fucking taken from you. You're still fucking here. Guess what? So get up, dust yourself off, realize that you still can keep going and keep fucking going. Nobody else is going to live this for you. It's you.
It's definitely not something you could use cheat codes through. Yeah, you have to wade through the bullshit and do the
Well,
work
some
going.
people can. Some people can hop into the, army base and take a tank and drive around a little bit.
Yeah, you can try, but in life, that doesn't work because I've tried cheat codes my whole fucking life. Emotional cheat codes do not have to dig in and do the work, not know what it means to do that because I haven't looked deep enough to,
No, but
there are certain cheat codes that they'll catch up to you because that's running, in my opinion.
you remember how everybody's like, oh well, you leveled up. You
Yeah.
made it another year around the sun. It's like, no, you level up when you actually teach yourself a skill.
Yeah,
You level up when you actually round yourself off as a
that's what I
person and
call
make
it
yourself a little bit
in my
better.
life.
And I would suggest anybody that is struggling mentally, do this. Write a letter. Write a letter to your loved ones, write a letter to your kids, write a letter to, even if you don't hand it to them, write a letter and tell them how much they mean to you, or how much it hurts that they're not sitting there by your side. I did that on the night of right before my surgery. I couldn't sleep that night, and I needed to get my emotions out. I was feeling all this stuff. I was feeling like everything was coming to a point, and I wasn't going to make it out of that surgery. I just had that feeling. Just something, that 25% of death didn't feel like it was tangible, but I knew I had to. I wrote a letter to my mom. I wrote a letter to my wife at the time, and I wrote a letter to my kids. Even Ava, who wasn't even born at that point. Just the letter to my wife and my kids were very similar. It was, I love you guys. I hope that if I don't come out of this, everything is okay. That no matter what happens, that every single thing that could happen, good for you guys does. Because that's why I'm doing this. I want to make sure you're okay. Because you don't deserve me broken on the couch and can't fucking do anything every single day of my life. You deserve the best version of me I possibly can be. And that's not that. So I have to take this risk. And I'm sorry I do. It's my fault. I understand that, but I have to be the best version for you guys I can. And a letter to my mom was, why aren't you here? Why couldn't you just admit that you were wrong and apologize? Because I need you now. Because I don't know if I'm going to die or not. I really don't. And you really begin to see that point where you actually have the words to say and they come out of your mouth, or they come out on paper, or wherever you want to do them. It changes how you perceive everything afterwards, because you actually become grateful for the things that are in front of you instead of worrying about the trivial bullshit and how much somebody genuinely matters. Because every single person you integrate into your life matters at some level, and if they don't, then they shouldn't be there. At some point, the world and everything that's wrapped around this fucking dumbass fucking game we all play for 80 years, there's a reason why that person's around you, whether it's to make you better, you make them better, or where they genuinely add something to your life. And sometimes reorganizing that, reshuffling the deck, relooking at the card is what you need to do at step one.
Yeah, it's taken me back to take a relook at the whole deck, to be honest. I've traced these bursts of whatever back to childhood. I'm talking 5, 4.
Mhm.
I can't remember back any further than that, but I can remember incidents that had happened back then, you know. Um, and why it happened and the root of it all will get plucked out. Um, you know, and I'm not gonna play a blame game. I'm just gonna find the root of the weed and I'm gonna pluck the weed out. Um, I can have emotions about it in the moment when I'm realizing it. I can move forward with that weed plucked out of my garden to make the most beautiful blooming garden that I can possibly make going forward.
Exactly. And there's a lot of things in this situation that's like I want to touch on, but I'm trying to like be protective of your patience and understanding and everything else as well. I think the hardest part is admitting that you're a dipshit or that you
Yeah.
can't fucking control something in the moment and apologizing and holding yourself accountable. And like I say that in a lighthearted way, but as a whole, like that's me. So if you don't understand that by now, it's kind of hard to grasp that. But like if you look at yourself and understand that you're not perfect, you're a dipshit, and everybody in the fucking world is a dipshit at some point. It makes you feel a little bit less like everything that happens to you is unique and different, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes a lot of people fucking deal with it. Hell, I dealt with it. I've jumped out of a moving car before. I completely understand.
Yeah. Uh, you did?
Yeah. I did. So as I've talked about numerous times tangentially, and it feels good to finally be open quite a bit more. But my ex-wife has BPD, which is borderline personality disorder.
Keep
So
talking.
a lot of the times when she would struggle and when she would have a problem, she would develop lots of anxieties or stuff like that, and it would cause her personality to completely shift dependent on exactly what is going on with what she's dealing with. And that would end up being a huge fucking problem because she would just disconnect from what the fuck reality is. Whether that was, 3 or 4 days worth of missed work, it, it would be a huge problem and everything else. So she would just completely dissociate and disconnect from what the fuck is going on and just you were already unmuted. I'm gonna have to go back there and mute. You're good.
Damn.
I, um, so with all of that shit, she would be a problem. Like she would disconnect from like what reality is and just feel like something's rejecting her or something like that. So she drove me to work, and I went to get out of the car, and she looked at me and said, "You're not going to work today. We traveled 20 miles for me to get here. What the fuck are you telling me? I'm not going to work today." She speeds off and starts pulling out of the store parking lot. And we had like a 15-minute long conversation, 20-minute long conversation sitting in the parking lot. That went fantastic. Like just there was something that just triggered her and she just sped off, essentially kidnapping me. That's legally what it is. So pulling out of the into the intersection, she had to stop and slow down to turn into the intersection and go and then turn again. And in between the two turns, I opened the door, pulled my seatbelt off, and jumped out of the car while it was moving. So yes, I know exactly how that feels, and I could have absolutely fucked myself up.
Yeah, you could have.
But surprisingly, I ran out of it. I have no idea how the fuck I was able to do that. I opened the door, jumped, and did the whole whoosh, and just kept walking.
I mean, your legs are real long, mine are not, and it was real slippery out, so it
Yeah,
was.
it's much icier now than it was in the middle of summer. But I still don't understand and grasp exactly how I was able to run 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, trying to run out of a parking lot car. But I did. But that made me, that's when I helped her start getting diagnosed with, hey, this could be a problem. Like this genuinely could be a problem. This could be part of what causes you all of your problems for the rest of your life, because this is unsafe. This isn't okay. You're putting everybody else around you in unsafe situations, and it's not whether it's medication or therapy or whatever. The first step is realizing that you're hurting somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and the other things don't need to come first. The first the first step is absolutely realizing, that you're doing something to not only to yourself, which you may not care about, like in my instance, I don't give a fuck, at right now in life, I don't really care. And that's I think the catalyst of it all, and we need to figure out why that is. If something happens to me, something happens to me. There's life insurance; they'll be fine, you know. But
That
that's
right there
not.
is suicidal. Do you
It
realize that?
yeah, I mean it. Yeah, it is what it is, man. I would never do anything to
Oh, I know.
do that to make that
But
happen.
do you
Um,
remember when my mom was working at Astor and she was like, "Oh, well, I'm worth more dead than I am alive."
yeah, I heard her say that more than once and hated every minute of it.
Like that is mental illness.
Yeah,
That is not realizing that, you have impact on every single person that's around you every single day of your life, and that will, regardless of how impactful you are to that community and that circle that you have, it will impact however many people are around you.
it's
You have to
definitely
find something to keep going for
yeah,
instead of
it's
just ticking off the days.
yeah, it's a level of apathy that that needs to be addressed for sure. Um, and it was a level of apathy that I didn't realize existed until the other day. Um,
And it's a weird situation because this will be a bookend for you.
yeah,
This will be a climax. This will be okay. This is end of Harry Potter book 5, and I just dealt with Voldemort again, and I hope that we're fucking able to move forward because guess what, motherfucker? It's my life, and I'm the chosen one.
the movies
But
that I did watch of that, I was with your family, so that's funny that that's the reference you made.
I definitely do not have a Harry Potter tattoo on my wrist, and
No,
Harry Potter thing right there, and Harry Potter thing right there, and right there, and you know, definite baby names that aren't Harry Potter related, and you picked the wrong kid to be like, yeah, I'm gonna choose the nerdy one, not to understand the Harry Potter reference with.
just it's very important, and I took accountability quite quickly uh, after I got out of my crisis, which is exactly what it was. Um, so once I got out of the crisis, I was able to realize that it was a big deal and what could have very well happened, and how I affected other people. Um, as and then you start to become accountable and you point your finger inward, um, which is what I've been getting better at. I have absolutely been getting better at that. Testament to how quickly I did it this time, with myself. But I caught myself making myself the villain
Mhm.
in my own story, you know,
Yeah.
um, because so many others had made me the villain, in certain situations and whatever situations happened. Um, and I can't get caught in that downward spiral of being the hardest on myself than, I'm harder on myself than anybody is. I don't expect myself to have these kind of outbursts, but they happen. And so, not being perfect, but recognizing and being open and able to fix the issues to the best of your ability is the only thing that you can really do. And then doing the work and then following through and doing the work, which is the next step.
Yep. And asking, how can I explain this better to you? And that's one of the hardest conversations to have next is that conversation with your significant other, your conversations with your loved ones. It's like, okay, there are going to be times where it's not your fault, but I get to a place where I need to get out of this. How can I acceptably tell you that I need to get the fuck out of this because something is wrong and I'm not okay anymore? We could have been perfect 20 minutes ago. That's what mental health is. That's what mental illness is. That's what a lot of the harder things to deal with are is it's not days, it's minutes and seconds of like one choice. And it's like if you're able to help me talk through this choice, I'm okay. But I need you to figure out how to talk through that choice. And that's not necessarily your job. You don't have to do it. You can walk if you want to, but I love you. I care about you. And I'm trying to ask for forgiveness and help.
Right. And, even if, the forgiveness will come, and the help may or may not come, depending on that person. In my situation, it may, it may not. Who knows? A lot of, a lot of question marks are up in the air uh, about my own feelings, about what happened and why. Um, and why I allowed my own needs to be, you know, why I allowed myself to ignore my own needs to a point of that,
Yeah.
you know, and so it'll come, but you have to, and let me speak in my terms. I have to be able to acceptedly learn how to. If it's shut my mouth, it's absolutely biting my tongue and tasting that blood, until I can get out of the situation. As
Yeah.
to not, have that initial knee jerk, even if it's not something, the substance of what I said wasn't the problem. It was the voice,
Yeah.
you know? And so how do you remedy that? Well, you don't speak.
And I went through that entire situation. You watched me go through it. And I'm going to tell you the actual answer. And maybe it's a cheat code. Maybe it helps you speed up the healing process. Only speak how you want to be talked to. Like, yeah, you may be a sarcastic asshole. You may throw in a couple jokes here and there. But if you cannot speak the way that you would want to receive it, don't fucking say it.
Yeah. And I honestly don't think that's a cheat code. I think that's
But it's hard to realize. Like
yeah,
you hear that quote, so speak how you would like to be spoken to. No, that's not what the answer is. It is, if I don't want it said to me like that, then I have to be that level of precise with my words for every other person around me to know exactly how I feel.
yeah.
So
And
either I
that's
need to give them more credibility and understanding, or they need to give me less. And that's the choice. You
regardless of
have
how
to,
you're spoken to,
yep.
right? Yeah. Yep.
You either have to accept them better and understand better. So way you give them more understanding in how you're reacting to their words, or you have to care less. I don't know. To me, I would rather be more eloquent with how I speak and give them the same demand than expect less from people.
Yeah, it's just it's not like, to me, it's not, and I know it's the what, I don't stop caring about a situation because I desensitize myself to personalizing it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't have to personalize the situation. And I think that's my problem, is that I do that a lot. I personalize the situation and then I get defensive. Um, and it just doesn't need to happen a lot of times.
Yeah. And it's really, really easy to disconnect in that way. It's really hard to take criticism on the chin. Like somebody in our comments was like, well, that's not how SSRIs work. And I just read through these things like, you guys are fucking dipshits. Like, honestly, I hate it. And it's just like, honestly, we create all this content for you guys. We hope that you guys enjoy it. We want to help somebody out there. If that's not how SSRIs or something little like that doesn't work for you and it works, I'm happy. But if there's not a question about how they work, then wouldn't everybody be on every single one of them so that way we all feel better? No? Okay, then understand that there's problems with them.
It's just
And that's how
questions
things,
about it. And that's
yeah.
all we're saying, is that there are questions about things, and people have said things that aren't true, and it's parsing through that information to get your own information, come to your own conclusions, deductive reasoning. A lot of people just don't understand how to do that.
And when you're
But
struggling, understand that that is the time to ask the fucking question. It's not when things are good. Yeah, that may be the time when you can change things and see things in real time. But when things are bad, when you're struggling and you can't get the fuck off the couch, asking somebody, how the fuck can I help get out of this? And all of those little things like that, that is when you're able to see the biggest fucking problems, is when things are bad. It's not about 10 days from now when everything's healed and everything's scabbed over and you don't feel it anymore. That's not when you're able to make the big jump of how do I change this?
And I mean, I asked myself, went back and forth about even doing an episode about it, like
Mhm.
making it, putting it out there. Why? Why would I do that? And the answer was multifaceted, um, and it's not because none of this has ever been about views or clicks or likes. It's not about that for me. It's uh, first and foremost about a level of self accountability in my own journey, and
Yeah.
you being that accountability partner with me
Mhm.
is the way that I process through these things now. It's part of the growing new relationship that we have, and it's a part that's it's important for me to voice to whoever may be listening, that no matter how good you may be doing, um, and something may just not go right. You may take a few steps back in an area, but it's okay. It's okay to admit it. It's okay to be vulnerable about it. It's okay with around the right people, and it's okay to move forward and rectify it, and not have to stay in that space of uh, just the unknown space. It's a horrible space to be in after something like that happens. Uh, the feelings that you have about it, you don't have to stay. It's gonna go away. I'm gonna march right through that into some more healing and then some more healing. And apparently, it tracks back quite a bit. So I have quite a bit of road ahead of me. I have quite a bit of work to do. And it's okay to process that however I need to process it.
Yep. And whether you're KJ and you're struggling figuring out exactly where your mind is, whether you're in that same place, a better place, a worse place, I want you to understand one thing. There's only one person that you can trust to find your genuine way out of this, and it's yourself.
That's me.
You are the one that will lead yourself out of this. You'll be able to figure it out and put the things together. The thing is that there's always an answer of how to get out of the fucking puzzle and box that you put yourself in. There is an answer. It's holding yourself accountable and taking the best right next step. It doesn't matter if it's a shitty one. It's you have to take the best one that is in front of you, step, and then step again if it's a shitty one. Keep proving yourself right. Keep proving yourself that you can think properly. Because if you keep building on that esteem and doing esteemable acts and fixing things, then you're actually going to fix it. Keep taking your steps, keep walking the lonely road, and God damn it, someday somebody will join you.
Cheers.